Welcome, welcome, dear sisters. How's everybody doing today? We are in mid-December, coming into the darkest night of the solar year. And we're in the descent. We're in the descent aspect, and the winter solstice is the still part of the descent. However, it's the first light that is activated. So for many of us, this is of course a time of celebration and being with your loved ones and family. And for others, we can intensely feel alone and feel the darkness. And as I mentioned in the last video, we have been indoctrinated to fear the darkness. And we may be feeling a lot at this time of year, depression and hopelessness that are some of the qualities of the shadow side of the water element. Water element is associated with winter. And the water is the flow. The water is the ocean of love. The water can be very, very deep and dark, and metaphorically, it's also a place of the unknown. It's also used as a metaphor for the ocean of love, the container of love that we're all swimming in many ways, just like a fish in water. We're existing in the love. We're existing in the consciousness of love. And so water can also represent our emotions and can represent our feelings, our ability to feel and to perceive with our emotional body, which has also been shut down in our dominant culture. And it's also something that women can do very easily. It's also correlated with some of the hormones like estrogen and progesterone, for example. So our ability to feel and our ability to also, the shadow side of that, to be shut down, to not feel, to have our emotions stagnated, to fall into depression, to fall into hopelessness, where we're in the dark and we can't quite see a way out. It is very common at this time of year, especially if you're in climates that the sun isn't shining as much. If you're more in northern climates, where it's cold, where it's, bitter cold, there's not as much sun. So there's also a correlation with our biochemistry and depression and hopelessness, seasonal disorders and things like that. But it all correlates with this energy of winter that we're moving into, and the winter solstice and the time of Yule. And for those that are feeling alone and depressed and hopelessness, or perhaps overwhelmed because there's so much that is happening, and it can really affect us on a day-to-day, on a personal. It can be really overwhelming, especially if we are being affected personally by the political climate, by these decisions. If you're a woman and you're living in the United States, it can be a very, very, very overwhelming and scary place, as well as many other people. that are being affected by some of these changes. And it's happening also globally. There's a lot going on globally that we've talked about before. And on top of all that, there are the greater shift that we're in that is happening as well. So we're in this death and rebirth of the ages of a new era. So this death can be felt on many levels, can be felt personally in our own lives. And for many of us, not just being at the end of the year, but we're being asked personally to let go, to release whatever is not serving us anymore with this winter season. Now, mind you, this winter season lasts all the way to spring, right? We have in bulk, and then we have the spring equinox. In bulk is around midway between the winter solstice and the spring equinox, around February. And so this is a time of releasing, and it's also a time of union with the essence, with the mother. We've talked a little bit about rebuilding our relationship with oneness, with the universe, with the dark, the holy dark, the essence of the dark that really supports our soul and our soul's journey, and that is really supporting this change that we're in right now, this big global change. And whether we're able to see it or whether we're really caught in our own personal container of emotional stress and challenges, we can be reminded that as the darkness around us grows, metaphorically and physically, because we're moving into the darkest night of the year, that the light is born. And the light is ourselves, our being. This new era is about awakening to our divinity. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's about just awakening to our divine selves. The fact that we are divine and we have a divine nature, as well as our humanity and our physical and our biology. And it's really not two separate things. It's really an extension of our divine selves. And so being reminded that this is a time to shed, that even in our depression and our hopelessness, we can allow to see that that is not truly who we are. That there's something underneath that. And we can invoke and invite all of that conditioning, of those kind of thought forms, those ideas that we're experiencing to be dissolved, to be surrendered, we can open ourselves up to the beauty of who we truly are. And we can enter this time really with that inquiry in our hearts, like, who am I at this time? Who am I? You know, underneath my conditioning, underneath my defense mechanisms, underneath my fears and shame and rage and anger and the way I feel things should be versus the way that they are. It's like, who am I underneath that? And it's not that these things, these conditions, these experiences that we've had, they change us. They grow us, right? They expand us. And they create wisdom. They create an ability to perceive in a way that perhaps before those experiences we weren't able to. So everything that we've lived into this moment has brought us to this moment. And so there is a gift in it. No matter how challenging or difficult our situations may be, there is a gift, whether we're able to see it, whether we're able to take it in. Some things are there's absolutely things that are horrific, and we're not dismissing those by any means. There's traumas, there's experiences that are really horrific and that people go through and that you might have experienced as well. However, I'm not saying, there's always a reason for going through things, but they do change us in some way. And we can and do usually grow. And there's wisdom to be had from those experiences. And so we can allow ourselves to shift into being able to ask ourselves who we are, and to hold that as our meditation, hold that as an inquiry as we're moving into the cycle of the ignition, the birth of our light. And this light is our own divine self, our own individualized soul. And the metaphor of that happening at this time of year in the Northern Hemisphere on the earth, which of course affects us as human beings because we are part of the earth as well. And we're living on the earth. And so we're intertwined and we are an aspect of earth. The earth in many ways is our ancestors. So reminding ourselves to be with everything that we're feeling, to be with ourselves at this time, to go inward, to reflect, but also not to allow the conditioning to kind of suck us dry, right? There's always our true being of light. And what is that? Who is that? How can we strengthen the relationship with our light, with our essence, with our divine being? Because that's the direction that we're all going in, whether that's obvious or not. For some, it seems like that's not where they're going. But that is the new era. It's a new era of sovereignty within yourself. I call it an era of feminine sovereignty. It's an era of actually realizing our divinity and what that means. And everything that's existing behind and through just the physical world that we see. There is so much more there. It's like the iceberg that we only see the tip of the iceberg on the ocean. And yet underneath, in the ocean, there is so much more to that iceberg. And so awakening to the divine realms is really the big change of the age of Aquarius. And it's the big era that we're moving into. And there's a death and rebirth, and that's not just happening globally, but it's also happening within yourself. And yet your light is not what dies. What is dying is your old thought forms. Of course, if you're willing, we can resist it, which causes a lot more pain, in my opinion. We can resist it. We can resist what is happening. We can resist our challenges. We can hold on to it should be this way, whatever way you're thinking it should be. However, having acceptance for the moment is really a way into that greater expansion, if we can accept, even if we don't like what is happening, and being present with what is happening within your own personal world as well as what's happening outside, and taking this time to connect with your light, to connect with your essence, to ask yourself who you are, and of course, aside from the roles that you play, the things that you do or have, right? But that's not who you are. What are the qualities that you're carrying through? What are the things that are important to you? What is your perception of yourself? That's who you are. And much more, because we're divine beings. And then allowing that death process, whatever the moment is asking for you, that death process to happen, the letting go of your thoughts, of the thought of who you think you are, of the way that you've been that perhaps isn't supportive, that might have been a learned defense mechanism against challenges and trauma that you've experienced, the way that you've protected yourself and in many ways maybe alienated yourself because of trauma, and letting go of those thought forms, those ideas that aren't serving you. And especially the ideas and conditioning of unworthiness, of shame, of even fear. And fear is one of those things that it's easy to say, oh, we could just let go, but it's not, at least in my experience in working with women in the last 30-something years, it's not something you can just pull a switch and experience safety. You have to, in my opinion, you have to cultivate safety within yourself. And cultivating safety in order to allow yourself to release the fear. It's almost like it's an automatic. When you cultivate safety, the fear dissolves. So it's not about releasing fear. It's really about cultivating that safety, that security. And if you cultivate safety or security with something outside of yourself, say a job, a particular job that provides a certain amount of money, or a relationship that provides a certain level of security, or things. These things can always change. These things can always dissolve. These things can come and go. They are not secure. And so that safety is not something you can count on, truly, because it can come and go. And so anything outside of yourself doesn't really, truly cultivate safety. The safety comes from within. Cultivating safety is cultivating the relationship with yourself, and even more particularly the relationship with your divine self, and your ability to feel resourced, your ability to your imagination and creativity, and your ability to know that in any given challenge you can tune in and resource and receive the ideas, the direction, the guidance that you're needing in that moment. And usually it involves other people, but it starts with you. It's your ability to tune in to yourself, to know that, in any given challenge, I'll be okay. I'll be okay. Because of that relationship with the divine self and with the greater divine, with what I call the Great Mother. and source that's all around us. And so as we cultivate that level of safety, that level of true security, knowing that, each challenge that we have, sometimes we realize that, things can look a certain way and things can be very scary. And the more traumas that you've survived, the more that you have grown and grow that resilience that tells you that you are going to be okay. Even without that thing, even in a moment where you don't know the answer. And I think that's what creates the most fear in us usually, is the fact that we don't know the answer. We don't know what it's going to look like. And so building safety and security is not about knowing, because we don't know. The truth is, there's a lot we don't know. We think we know, but that's kind of a false sense of security. But it's our ability to navigate these places even without knowing. Trusting that you will receive the guidance, that you will move in a certain way, and that you trust your ability to navigate in this ocean of the unknown. And usually we can feel that safety when we feel connected to something greater than ourselves, to source. That we receive epiphanies, that we receive ideas, that someone says something and it sparks something within you, but you're listening. Your ability to listen, your ability to navigate, and those challenging waters when they show up in your life. That's true safety, and that's true security, because no one can take that away from you. And it's an ability to lean into the unknown and have that direct relationship with Source, direct relationship with the Great Mother, with the Divine. And to me, that's also the quality of love, the unconditional love, and having that direct relationship with love. And so the emotion of fear is also connected to this winter time, the season of winter that we're in. But so is wisdom, right? Wisdom is also correlated. And this is a time where we can shift from fear to wisdom. And the bridge is cultivating that safety. So as we let go of the ideas, of the things in our lives, and whatever might be up for you in this time, in this season, at the end of the year, the solar year, and as we're going in deeper into this winter, we can also deepen our relationship with being in the unknown and being with the Mother and with the love. So deepen the relationship with love. And so those pieces are something you can use as this time of who am I, reflecting on that. What is asking of me to be released? What is it that might want to be dissolved? What is it that I don't want to go into the next stage, the next rebirth of my life? And in the spring, in this in bulk, in this new year, what is it that I don't really want to keep carrying over, right? It might be just in the ways that you criticize yourself. It might be something on the outer. It might be a job, it might be a situation, it might be a relationship. That its time has come and that you've known for a while. And is it fear that's holding you back? Because you can navigate the unknown, right? And if it is fear, then you can make a choice to listen to the guidance if it's time, even if you don't know what it may look like, right? Or we don't always have an outer security before we take that first step. Yeah. And so I just wanted to add that for the winter season that we're in. So I'd like to actually just read a couple of poems that I've written. These poems I've written a while back, and I just opened up to a couple of them, and I'd like to read that for you as you contemplate all of this. The first one is called The Radical Conscious Feminine. The radical conscious feminine is awakening women to give birth to love a love that is embodied, creative, fierce, and powerful. A love that is transmitted through our feminine sacred bodies in everyday circumstances, even as we do the dishes and direct board meetings. This is the radical conscious feminine giving birth to love, alive, engaged, and passionate, rather than off secluded in a cave somewhere, meditating in detached consciousness. We are the love. We are this radical love, embodied consciousness of the feminine way. So just taking a minute here, letting that sink in. And reflecting in our question of who we are. Well, you could start there. It's like, can I associate myself with the love? Can I see myself as that essence of love? Because that is an expression of our divine self, the love, the unconditional love. And this one is called Dear Mother. Dear Mother, you have taken everything away from me and left my soul bare. I can no longer afford to speak to others for counsel because you demand all of me. In my distress, I am lured by the sweet promise of awakening to you. In my distress, I have come to know the overwhelming love that you are. In my distress, I am beginning to touch your ocean of love, mercy, and abundance. Oh, dear Mother, you have stripped me naked, leaving me nowhere to turn. And yet humbled in this darkness, I see your face. I feel your stillness. And once again, I am born anew from you. And so sending you much, much love in this season. And let this be a time of of deep intimacy with yourself, discovering, exploring the beauty, the magic, the love of who you truly, truly are. Many blessings.